Hello everyone, and welcome to the Asynchronous 10.2 PowerPoint for TCH 208. And I'm going to walk you through this PowerPoint today and discuss more aspects of what you can do with critical readers. So looking at this, what's happening today, we're going to do what's called problematizing text with interpretive and critical readers. And let's take a look at what this exactly means. So the definition of problematizing text is when we have very simplistic texts like picture books that we would use with younger readers. It's a way of using these types of texts with older readers, and because of who they are as learners and where they are developmentally, we can add lines of questioning to have the students do what's called problematizing, and helping that it be a springboard for them to look more deeply into a particular topic. So it all depends on the line of questioning that you pose to them. So this also falls within the transactional school of thought, and that when we believe in reader response theory, with these students, it encourages these students to take these questions and take their own experiences and then share with one another and build new knowledge and new perspectives through these discussions. So looking at the line of questioning here, we'll go to the next slide and I'll walk you through these. So for example, if you were to read a very simplistic text like Click Clack Moo that we've had experience with in this class, we would take that simplistic book and with maybe sixth graders ask these sorts of questions because they're prepared because of who they are developmentally to answer, why do you think the author told this particular story? Now if you asked a kindergartner, first grader, second grader, they may give you an answer, but what you're looking at here with older students is maybe within a field of study in social studies, and let's say you're in the middle of learning about the Industrial Revolution or the beginning of unions in American work society. You might read this simplistic picture book and ask these sorts of questions that would spur on or springboard to a more in-depth discussion about the content area you were learning. So you would ask that first question, then also ask, how does the author represent social and cultural relationships? Which groups have power? How are various cultural groups represented? Now, if you ask a first grader, how are various cultural groups represented, they're really not prepared to answer that question. As a sixth grader, as a critical reader, they are able to answer that question, especially if you're building the background knowledge for them in a content area. How are conflicts resolved? What does the story tell you about the author? What's missing from the story, and what does this story tell us about our culture? So what I'm going to do is, now that you know this line of questioning, and we're going to revisit this after we listen to this read aloud, I want you to think about these particular questions as you listen to the story. So consider these, and we're going to think about what sort of conversation our students would have.
Click, Clack, Moo, Cows That Kite, by Doreen Cronin. Pictures by Betsy Lou. Farmer Brown has a problem. His cows like to type. All day long he hears click, clack, moo. Click, clack, moo. Clickety, clack, moo. first, he couldn't believe his ears. Cows that type? Impossible. Click, clack. Click, clack. Clickety, clack. Then he couldn't believe his eyes. Dear Farmer Brown, the barn is very cold at night. We'd like some electric blankets. Sincerely, the cows. It was bad enough the cows had found the old typewriter in the barn. Now they wanted electric blankets. No way, said Farmer Brown. No electric blanket. So, the cows went on strike. They left a note on the barn door. Sorry, we're closed. No milk today. No milk today, cried Farmer Brown. In the background, he heard the cows busy at work. Click, clack. Click, clack. Clickety, clack. The next day, he got another note. Dear Farmer Brown, the hens are cold too. They like electric blankets. Sincerely, the cows. The cows were growing impatient with the farmer. They left a new note on the barn door. Closed. No milk, no eggs. No eggs? Cried Farmer Brown. In the background, he heard it. Click, clack. Click, clack. Clickety, clack. Cows that type, hens on strike. Who ever heard of such a thing? How can I run a farm with no milk and no eggs? Farmer Brown was furious. Farmer Brown got out his own typewriter. Dear cows and hens, there will be no electric blankets. You are cows and hens. I demand milk and eggs. Sincerely, Farmer Brown. Duck was a neutral party, so he brought the ultimatum to the cows. The cows held an emergency meeting. All the animals gathered around the barn to snoop, but none of them could understand moo. All night long, Farmer Brown waited for an answer. Duck knocked on the door early the next morning. He handed Farmer Brown a note. Dear Farmer Brown, we will exchange our typewriter for electric blankets. Leave them outside the barn door and We will send Duck over with the typewriter. Sincerely, the cow. Farmer Brown decided this was a good deal. He left the blankets next to the barn door and waited for Duck to come with the typewriter. The next morning, he got a note. Dear Farmer Brown, the pond is quite boring. We'd like a diving board. Sincerely, the ducks. Click, clack, quack. Click, clack, quack. Clickety, clack.
So now, as you can see, when we think about this particular read aloud and we think about problematizing it, we want to imagine what the conversations with critical readers would be using this particular line of questioning. So if we go back to these questionings and we think why we thought maybe the author told that particular story, and how does the author represent social and cultural relationships and which groups have power, we could begin talking about who has power, whether it's the animals or the farmer, and why maybe the author told this story, if the author had experiences with power struggles or cultural groups, and how conflict was resolved between the animals and the farmer, how power switched hands, and then thinking about what's missing from the story and what it tells us about ourselves and our culture. So if we had been studying the Industrial Revolution when we went to factories in our country to create products, and then unions were created, and which groups had power within these factories, and we were studying that in history or social studies, we could read a picture book like this and problematize it with this line of questioning to have it be a springboard for discussion about that particular content. So that's how we problematize text, just with a very simple picture book, and how it's appropriate in upper level elementary. So for next time, what I'd like for you to do is to move on to week 11 and do your readings, the Johnston reading, an instructional framework for RTI. Have a great week.